Hey, everybody. You are watching the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Mike Nicastro. Find me on Twitter at MikeDubSports1. That is at Jordan York Music. And of course, we are at Sick Pod Steelers on Twitter. We're really excited about today's episode. We have somebody who's obviously really in the know with the Pittsburgh Steelers. First, I want to talk a little bit about next week as well. It's our debut here of the Chris Wormley and Friends show, where we talk to Chris every Tuesday. He's going to be bringing on additional Pittsburgh Steelers. We're so excited about that. But they can't hold a candle to our guest today. It's Steelers ESPN insider Brooke Pryor. We're going to bring her on right now after our sweet intro.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Harris Smith shields. Flacco Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast.
Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be
Sick.
Hey, Brooke, how are you?
I am great, guys. I'm sitting in the Steelers indoor facility right after we've had back-to-back practice or back-to-back press conferences today. They feel like practice because every press conference is a practice for those of us asking questions. But yeah, it's been a wild day. We finally have some clarity on the quarterback situation, although it's not entirely surprising.
Yeah, it's kind of what I wanted to talk about, the copy and paste there that was all over Twitter, the QB depth chart. I don't know if some in-house people I'm sure already knew, but it kind of, in the Twitter world, it kind of set off Steelers Twitter. So just kind of talk about that real quick.
Yeah, so it sounds like what happened is the depth chart that went out yesterday, the quarterback depth chart listed Mitch Trubisky 1, Mason Rudolph 2, Kenny Pickett 3, was the quarterback depth chart from the first preseason game, and it got copied and pasted over, and they didn't correct it. It didn't get caught. It published like that. I don't think there's any grand conspiracy theory here, although, of course, it would be fun if there was one. But yeah, I asked Mike Tomlin about it today because the second depth chart came out about 45 minutes before he spoke, tweeted out by Burt Loughton, Steelers PR director, who said, all right, guys, here's the updated depth chart. We'll address the changes that happened. And the only change was Kenny Pickett 2, Mason Rudolph 3. So it's my understanding that, as Mike Tomlin said, it was a clerical error, a copy and paste component, as he put it, because, of course, Mike Tomlin would make it add his own flair to the explanation of what happened. But, I mean, this is pretty much what we expected it to be. But it was, fun on Twitter for about 11 hours when it seemed like Mason Rudolph was the 2 and Pickett was the 3.
Yeah.
Brooke, do you presume Mason Rudolph will not dress on Sunday against the Bengals?
He will not. I asked Tomlin, I said, is the plan to have 3 quarterbacks dressed on Sunday? And he said no. He didn't offer any more explanation beyond that. But if the plan isn't to dress 3, it certainly wouldn't be to dress 1. So I would assume he's dressing 2, and that would be Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, because Kenny Pickett is taking all of the backup reps this weekend. Mason Rudolph will be running the scout team.
All right, we got some clarity on the quarterback depth chart, obviously. Something we didn't get as much clarity on is Diontae Johnson and the injury he's been dealing with. Obviously, a guy who caught 100 passes last year, a key component, going to help out Mitch or Kenny, whoever's out there. What can you tell us? Have you got any updates, or you kind of just the update Tomlin gave you today?
Yeah, well, as Mike Tomlin said today, participation will be their guide, the same refrain that we hear constantly when we ask about an injury. But I think it's notable that he was not a full participant in Monday's practice. The Steelers did not release an injury report from it, but we are allowed to take photos in the first 15 minutes. And I took a photo of Diontae Johnson catching passes by himself, and then also kind of squatting on the ground while the other receivers were working out, which would, you can deduce from that he was not a full participant. And I think that that's somewhat notable because when he injured his shoulder in the preseason, Tomlin said, if this is a regular season game, he could probably go right back in. But I think that this injury is something that is a little bit more serious than he was initially letting on.
We are joined by ESPN NFL insider for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Brooke Pryor. She's a North Carolina grad as well. Not sure if you watched that game on Saturday. If you had 11 hours to dedicate to that, as you're busy, it was a win. A win is a win is a win, right?
It was an ugly win. It was an ugly win, man.
It wasn't as ugly as Mac Brown's dance moves, but that's okay. I'm happy we don't have a graphic
They're
for that.
similar to my own, so.
Hey, you mentioned that there obviously were two press conferences today, the first being Coach Tomlin and the second being Art Rooney II. We weren't there. We didn't get to see it. If anybody out there on Twitter missed it, please give us an update.
It was really, really cool to it was a retirement for Franco Harris's jersey, the number 32, only the third jersey to be retired in the Steelers organization. And the coolest part about it, I haven't spent much time with Franco in the past. I've talked to him on the phone a couple times, but this is the longest that I'd kind of heard him talk just about his experience in the Steelers history. And you really got to hear what the Immaculate Reception meant to him, how that one play kind of changed the course of history for the Steelers, changed the organization's culture. He talked about how nobody saw the 1970s Steelers coming. It came completely out of nowhere in the dynasty that they were able to build. At one point, his wife kind of leaned over and said, "Are you going to let them ask any questions?" And he kind of laughed, but he just kind of got on a roll talking about what the organization meant to him and everything that he's gone through, what the Immaculate Reception meant to him. And it was a really cool moment of getting to experience living history, and something that I don't think we often get to do. And, there's a lot of cool things about this job. Sometimes you kind of gloss over them and think about them later, like, wow, I can't believe I was there for that game. But it was cool to have the realization in the moment, like this is something that's pretty special.
Jordan, you just saw Franco on Saturday. He didn't share any insight with you?
No, I was just happy to finish the Steelers 5K, and he was just sitting there and just said, hey, I met him numerous times, always a class act. And I just wasn't expecting, I think that everyone was kind of on edge. Like, I think people thought the ketchup bottles were coming back, or the name change on the stadium, because how people, just jump to conclusions. But I think it's awesome.
Yeah, no question about it. We're with Brooke Pryor. Rounding out here, thanks so much for joining us. I want to ask you one more question. And obviously, Mike Tomlin always speaks glowingly about the opponent as they, enter the press conference and prior to their game against the Cincinnati Bengals. We talked about the quarterback competition a little bit. Obviously, Trubisky getting the start. We talked about DJ. What else are you keeping your eye on? Maybe something you took from the press conference today ahead of Sunday's game?
To me, the biggest thing will just be the offensive line. It wasn't something that Tomlin necessarily talked about a bunch, because he did mention that Kevin Dotson is starting over Kendrick Green, which is something that I think we all kind of saw developing over the last few weeks. I do think that it's concerning that Kendrick Green has not worked out so far. It's not looking like a great draft pick just because, they started him at center. That obviously didn't work out. The thought was, okay, well, he's maybe more naturally a guard, put him over there. He can't beat out Kevin Dotson, despite Kevin Dotson missing a good amount of time because of injury. So I think that that's something to watch. But the line in general, you guys know, it did not look great during the preseason. It doesn't matter what quarterback is back there. It doesn't matter who's carrying the ball. If the line can't protect the quarterback and open up any holes for Najee Harris, it's going to be a very long season. That's been an Achilles heel for this team for about the last year and a half. And at this point in the year, it kind of feels like it's a Groundhog Day situation. You hope that they can figure something out. And I know the Bengals defense gets overshadowed by its offense, but they're still a pretty good defense. And this is going to be, I think the line play is what's going to determine the game on Sunday.
No question. All right. Lastly, and maybe most important, I'm not sure if you remember, you jumped on our podcast, Yins Are Crazy, last year, and I asked you about my favorite show, The Bachelorette. I know that you're a fan as well. I know you've been busy, and I'm not sure if you had a chance to catch any of this season, but do you have any thoughts for us, if so?
Oh my gosh, I wish I did. I have barely watched this season. I caught like a couple Mondays of it during training camp, and it was enough of just a chaotic. The episodes were chaotic every single time I watched, and I'd have to text my friends who were watching. I'm like, is it like this every week? And they're like, oh yeah. And I thought, I don't know if this is good or bad that I haven't been watching, because there's been a lot of chaotic energy from training camp already that I don't know if I have the capacity for anymore. But I'm looking forward to a new season starting with one lead. I don't like this competing lead situation. I just want it to get back to the basics. That's all I want. I want a cut and dry Bachelor season. I'd like them to stay together for longer than 3 weeks, it feels like, after filming ends. I want a love story in reality TV. I don't know if those still happen, but that's what I would like.
In terms of one lead versus two, I thought you were talking about the Steelers quarterback situation for a minute.
There is some carryover there.
I agree. Brooke, it's been a pleasure. You're obviously crushing it. Everybody check her workout. I think it's at BE Pryor, correct?
Yep, that's right.
Follow her on Twitter. You can see her on ESPN. She's everywhere doing a great job. Brooke Pryor, thank you so much.
Thank
Always
you.
a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
You got it. JY, a lot of good takeaways, obviously, from that. I thought maybe one of the most interesting things she said was the fact that she saw Diontae Johnson sort of working on the side, which tells me maybe he's healthier than some thought, even though he wasn't a full participant in practice. I mean, if you're Mitch Trubisky and you're starting your first game with the Steelers, you want to have your top receiver out there. That goes without saying, right?
Well, George Pickens will be out there.
Yeah, that's fair, man. You know what? Maybe the Steelers went into the season with 7 receivers on their team. Yeah. I think they should have went in with just one. Maybe just cut everybody else. You could trade Claypool, trade Diontae. Just go out there with George Pickens against 11 guys on defense and see what happens.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Brooke on the part of the biggest thing. I think the Steelers win if the line can show up, because that's just going to open up the running game, and let Mitch do his thing. Yeah. And you know how those two complement each other. So I really do think that the Bengals are overrated. I'm not saying that because I'm a Steeler fan. I think we talked about it on a prior episode where their records were almost identical. It just takes that team to get hot at the right time. And yeah, did the Bengals have the talent? But who's to say on paper? I mean, you look at the Steelers and say that they don't have talent. You're talking about the wide receivers. It just starts with the offensive line, man. That's the biggest component. Someone got to protect the quarterback and then open up holes for the running back.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a big question mark. I'm talking like a large question mark, not just a
the logo in the middle of the field should just be a question mark.
Should just be a question mark. Yeah, right around the O-line. I feel that. I totally agree. And I like how you threw the word Pryor in there too on the Brooke Pryor episode, man. That was a nice little play on words for sure. We're excited. We're going to bring you guys another all-new show on Thursday. Where we'll be previewing the game in a little bit more detail. And of course, Jordan just said it. Thursday, I want to spend some time talking to everybody out there, all of our fans, about the Chris Wormley and Friends show. It's going to be huge. We have Pittsburgh Steelers on this platform every week till the rest of the season. Hopefully it carries on through the playoffs. Sick podcast, of course, Steelers Crazy.
Super Bowl edition show.
You got it. In tandem with Yins Are Crazy and yinzarcrazy.com. It's going to be absolutely insane. You can check out this bottom line right here. YouTube, the Sick Podcast, Steelers Crazy. Twitter, at Sick Pod Steelers. We're going this way. We keep going up, up, up. Chris Wormley, obviously, and friends who are Pittsburgh Steelers are going to help us along the way. All right, Jordan, it's been a lot of fun. I like a show like this. You get right to the hard-hitting info. You get a Steelers reporter on. In, out, boom, baby. That's all you need. Ketchup bottles aren't coming back, unfortunately, but Franco Harris, well-deserved jersey retirement number. Nobody will wear 32 again for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, Jordan, we're taking off. Thank you, Brooke Pryor, once more. The Sick Podcast, Steelers Crazy. Make sure you check us out and check our latest episodes as well. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.